Welcome to the Nullified Take podcast, where we've got the TNT takes for you on Cobra Kai Season 4. And I've got a very special guest here today on the podcast, someone that I've done many a podcast with in the past, but normally it's about reality TV, more specifically The Challenge. Drew from the Angel Cake channel here on YouTube has joined me today as my co-host here, talking about Cobra Kai. Drew, what did you think of this season as an overall? Like, do you think that Cobra Kai season 4 has lived up to the hype after 12 months? I believe it was 12 months of waiting for it.
I think it did. I mean, it's hard because Cobra Kai can hardly do anything to disappoint me at this point. Because I mean, for starting out on, first of all, being like a spinoff or a reboot of an old 80s like franchise, something as silly as a Karate Kid could be instantly insane and just fall flat on its face. Yet it just keeps on getting better and better. The writing is staying true to when I watch the old movies and then look back into what they're actually doing on the TV show. And it's just, I don't know, it's insane to think that like it can make fun of itself, which we'll get into, but it like makes fun of itself. As we see, like Terry Silver was talking to John Kreese in this season and was just like, I tormented like a 18-year-old boy. Like, it's insane what I was doing back then. I can't do that now. Yet he gets wrapped up right into it, and it plays into the character. And I mean, it's just really good. It's just really, really good. I think I didn't think that anything could get as extreme or as fun as season 3, but season 4 was just as enjoyable. And I watched it in the span of 24 hours because I couldn't stop.
Yeah. No, listen, when they announced that Terry Silver was going to be the main bad guy or the person that was going to come back this season, as someone that loved the Karate Kid movies, loved that genre of movies that we used to get in the late 80s or mid 80s to 90s, you know, there used to be a lot of like karate, martial arts types of movies that used to be like the main thing, I think, back in the day in Hollywood, where now it's all about Marvel and superhero movies and stuff. And hey, listen, I'm not complaining. I see the Spider-Man figurehead there in the background. I'm a big Marvel fan as well, and obviously we could geek out about that quite a lot as well, but it is good to see a throwback to some of these old classic type of movies that we used to see back in the 90s and the 80s. And specifically, you know, Terry Creese has always been one of those villains that for me, Terry Silver has always been one of those bad guys that have sort of, it's stuck in my head. You know, he was such a big villain, such a maniac, psychotic liar, you know, basically a psychopath, you know, that threw toxic waste into the ocean somewhere. I love him as a villain. He's a fun villain, but you wouldn't want to cross him in real life.
Oh, heck no. I mean, so I just watched Karate Kid 3 for like fully for the first time. Like I got bits and pieces here and there, but I decided to like sit down because I was like, I don't remember Terry Silver too much. And my goodness, just rewatching it back and then thinking back to the season, I was like, this dude is unhinged. He's almost like a refined crazy now in Cobra Kai season 4, where it wasn't like he's just making some guy punch a board until his knuckles bled, or having that psychotic grin in the middle of like a sauna while he's like super excited to talk to John Kreese on the phone while he's in Tahiti getting a massage. But he is now like more calculated, which is almost more dangerous than what he was back then, because he was a wild card, but now he's like a sophisticated multi-millionaire, probably billionaire, just level of psychotic, and he can do whatever he wants in this realm. And I think it was really, really good. I think for establishing this world and the characters and how they think, how they react to everything, you just get used to it. Like, yeah, the acting isn't the best. Maybe the writing isn't the best. Maybe they're just like ham-fisting a fight scene that probably shouldn't be there and would be absolutely ridiculous. But it all works because they established this in the world. And so Terry Silver, for how crazy he is, he just fits, and it just works in the realm of what was established. And you can just tell the creators and writers love the source material, because of when I go and back and watch like Karate Kid 3, I sit there and go like, this is exactly the character. Like, it was almost as if he never stopped playing Terry Silver from the 80s to now. It's absolutely insane. It's absolutely incredible.
And it is crazy because the actor who plays Terry Silver, I read somewhere that he hasn't been acting for at least 12 years. So they had to bring him back from retirement to come back and do a show such as this, jump into a character that he played, over 30 years ago, which for a lot of actors I'm pretty sure would be a difficult thing to do. You're not in the mode of acting anymore. You haven't played that character for such a long time, and there's so much more that the show could have gotten wrong with bringing him back in than what they could have gotten right. Like you mentioned there, he is a psychopath. The tone of the movies is very different compared to the tone of the show in some ways, but they do acknowledge those nuances, those differences. Like you said, he's talking about the fact that he terrorized the 13-year-old or 16 or however old Daniel was at that time, and all the psychotic things he did to him because of a karate tournament of all things. It's so ridiculous that it shouldn't be something that people look at and say, oh, that sounds legitimate, but they somehow get it to work because of the way that they've written the show. But I am glad that you went back to watch The Karate Kid 3, because I spoke to one of my mates last night, and he's just watching the Cobra Kai season 4 now, and he's never seen Karate Kid 3, and he's talking about Terry being a crazy villain and stuff. And I said to him, he's mild compared to what he was like in the movie, because he's getting there. Like, I think at the end of the season, we see Terry going fully back into the character that he was back in that movie. I mean, his goal in Karate Kid 3 was to open up karate dojos, Cobra Kai dojos across the whole valley, which is where we're ending this whole season now. We know season 5, which has already been filmed and completed, thank goodness, is going to be about him trying to open all these dojos in the valley.
Yeah, I mean, I read somewhere that they have up to season 6 that they want to get through, and then after that they were like, okay, then we're going to be establishing the footing. What I love about the Cobra Kai, especially season 4, is that not only is everything established from what was back in the 80s and the original movies, but they're establishing a new ground with new characters, and everything seems to be making sense or fitting into the right places with puzzle pieces. Like Kenny coming into this, and I was like, where is this going? Where could Kenny fit into this? And then to have him go through such an arc in a 10 episode, 40 to 30 minute episodes, I was like, this is incredible what they're establishing, not only for this season, but onto the next seasons. I think, I can't remember her name. I really feel bad. But the actress that played the debate girl that came on to
Devin.
join. Yeah. She was incredible. I was like, yes, I want to see way more of her next time, especially when she's like, I did this in 6 days of training. I can't wait to come back next year and absolutely destroy everybody. And I'm like, yeah, you will destroy everybody with this Eagle Fang. But it's really fun to watch how everybody is such a complex character. If they have some form of speeches or some heavy dialogue in it, they're going to be a character with 3 dimensions, where you have Ralph Macchio, who nobody is completely good. Kenny, I was rooting for Kenny, and then halfway through the season, you're like, should I be rooting for Kenny now? I don't know about that. Like, I hate Anthony LaRusso, but now I kind of feel for Anthony LaRusso by the end of it. So it's so incredible that we can have these arcs either from season to season or just through the season, that we could have, because there was some characters that I loved from past seasons to this season where I was like, no, you're wrong. I don't want you to succeed. I don't think you should succeed. And then absolutely flip on its head at the end of the season. And I'm like, okay, well, now I don't know how I feel about you. It's rather fun to watch and try to guess what everybody is or where everybody's going to be at the end of the season.
You've given me so much just in that little dialogue of yours there. I don't know where to start, because I'm so excited, you could probably tell, about these new characters coming into the show and where that's going to lead. I think I messaged you. We were messaging each other back and forth as we were watching the season, and I said, I can see how they do another 3 seasons after this with setting up a lot of these new characters coming in. Like you mentioned, Devin, the debate girl. This is another reason why the show should not work, because 6 weeks to train for a bloody karate competition. I did karate for 15 years, and I'm a black belt in Goju-Kai karate, and I know how much training it takes to be able
Mhm.
to do even just the basics, the fundamentals. There's no way you could train someone to be competition ready in 6 weeks, but the show makes it happen. And obviously, they don't lead very heavily into like there's elements of karate that I can see, and it's one of the reasons I love the shows because it takes me back to when I was a kid and I was training for these competitions, and I had my friends that were all into karate. We weren't as psychotic. We didn't start these massive school brawls, putting people in stretchers and all that kind of stuff. But it does bring me back to that time, and I do want to ask you, and it's a dumb question here. Are you Cobra Kai, Miyagi-Do, or Eagle Fang? And obviously, you've got a Cobra Kai T-shirt on there. Obviously, we're promoting the show here, but where do you think you would sort of fall if you were one of these Karate Kids? What style would you do?
So this is an interesting question because halfway through season 4, I was like, okay, so the name of the show is Cobra Kai. The way we started out was uh, Johnny Lawrence's Cobra Kai. I have a Cobra Kai t-shirt I bought after season 1 and season 2. Yet I don't think we're rooting for Cobra Kai at this point. Like, it almost seems like it's weird to have it named Cobra Kai when the other two main characters that we're kind of like following and kind of invested in are not even in Cobra Kai. But yet it's fun because we do get to see a lot of Cobra Kai in the background. I would have to say that I'm very meek and mild, so I'd probably be Miyagi-Do. I think I would be much more on the defense. I'm not very much reactive and wanting to jump building to building on rooftops. But I guess I like the idea of this season where Machio and Babka or Zapka had to really like come together and really fuse the two forms to get to like being the ultimate fighter. I really liked it. I liked how they
Yeah.
pieced together Karate Kid 3 with the bonsai trees, with his with the whole talk about you have to do your thing. Like once you learn your way, you'll just mix and you'll form your own way of doing things. And Ralph Macchio is like, no, I do it your way. And it's like, no, that's not how it works at all. You got to do it the way it comes to you. And it felt so natural as it was
Yeah.
flowing that way. It wasn't the smoothest ride, but it was natural by the time we got to the
Listen,
end.
the writers are brilliant. Like, I mean, even how they used some of the lines that, again, that Miyagi had in Karate Kid 3, like, Daniel-san, one day you'll find your own way. A lot of this movie, it's such a simple line that was used in Karate Kid 3, but it becomes the overarching thing that everybody has to find. Like everybody, all these different cast members, all these different characters, they're struggling to find their own way. Robbie's on a journey. Sam's on a journey. And we're going to talk about a lot of these things. Miguel on a journey. He's on a different type of journey at the end of the season. But again, there's so many different people trying to find themselves in the show, and I think that's what makes the show so good because we can relate to someone out there. We can see a little bit of ourselves in some of these characters, and like you said, no one in the show is just pure evil or pure good. Maybe Silver is a little bit pure evil, especially when he taps into
Yeah.
Full Silver from Karate Kid 3. I think what he does to Kreese at the end is pretty bad, but we'll get into that later on. If I had to choose a style that I think I would do, and this is real funny, I read into this quite a bit because when they do a lot of the movements, and for instance, one of the things I geeked out about, and I'm sure I'm the only person that geeked out about this stuff because I'm an actual, like I said, I've done karate. I really love the craft of karate. I'm very happy that karate is becoming popular again because of the show. People are interested in it because karate kind of disappeared and everybody started going into mixed martial arts, UFC, that type of stuff. And karate became like old school. But now kids are seeing this. And from what I've heard, dojos in America and stuff like that, people are actually signing up again and wanting to do karate because of the show. When I look at the show and I see the katas and things like that, like I freaked out when they said katas and special events are coming into the competition. I was like, hell yes, I want to see this because I remember doing a lot of this stuff and I could see katas that I used to do, like Sahuchin and things like that, being used by Miyagi-Do. So it made me look into Miyagi-Do, and I was like, what is Miyagi-Do based on? Because I can recognize a lot of the movements and the blocking and the katas and things like that. And it is based on a style called Goju-Ryu. And the style of karate that I used to do was Goju-Kai, which was part of the Goju family, which is why there's such a lot of similarities. So I would be Miyagi-Do because of that. And one of the misconceptions that a lot of people have about Miyagi-Do, and maybe it is so more so Miyagi-Do specifically, is that it's only a defensive style. Goju means hard. Go means hard and Ju means soft. So it's about being hard and soft at the same time. So the balance between going on the offensive and also the defensive. Miyagi-Do left Japan and was more on the defensive side. That's his style, that's his thing. But the other side of it, the side that Chosen has trained under, that is the aggressive side of Miyagi-Do. He is trained under the rival and the main friend of Miyagi, who did more of the aggressive side. So that's where it's going to get interesting next season, because obviously we see Chosen being pulled in here, Daniel knowing he needs some of that aggressive side. And it's going to be interesting because Daniel, for the longest period of time, from what we've seen in the show, stopped doing karate for quite a long time before he started picking it back up. Chosen has continued to train in Japan for all those years, that I actually think Chosen is probably a more accomplished person, and he would probably be what Miyagi-Do should have been. They talk about sensei quite a lot. They probably don't want to confuse the viewers. He's probably more like a Shian, which is a higher level than your sensei in karate. And it's going to be interesting because I think he is going to counter probably Terry Silver. You're going to need that level of aggressiveness to take Silver on in this next season. I know I gave you a lot there, but that's just me geeking out and really enjoying the show just based on some of the karate knowledge I have as well.
No, that's great. I mean, I think also bringing on someone who is new that I don't think Terry Silver knows at all, you get a different style in there that when he does combat, say, Cobra Kai, either studios 1 through 20 that he's already planned to open up. I mean, it's going to be better for their students when they go to the next All Valley tournament and take on the Cobra Kai students, because Robbie did a lot in giving the Miyagi-Do secrets to Cobra Kai. And then he was able to like fuse the two together and really go hard in the paint at that All Valley tournament. I mean, I still can't believe how that ended. I'm very happy the way it ended, but also I felt something for Robbie, because it's like always the bridesmaid, never the bride at this point.
But Robbie's journey is an interesting one, because season 1 he joins Miyagi-Do. He gets into that side more so to get back at his dad. Obviously there's this whole relationship between him and Johnny that's they're both like estranged to each other. They don't know each other so well, and then they, it's always a girl. Even with this next generation, Sam becomes the thing between Miguel and obviously his dad to a certain degree, because Miguel becomes like a son to Johnny. Robbie sees that he's such a complex character. The story, how it's sort of intertwined with each other, is so good. But Robbie, I think ultimately this season, what I realized about him is that in his heart, he's a good kid. Like he thought, like he said, he could go into Cobra Kai, get his anger out in Cobra Kai. But throughout all of this, he never loses full control. Like there's other people, like Miguel has lost control. Hawk has lost control. Different people have been consumed by Cobra Kai, but he's never really fully consumed. He's never fully dark. He's never fully gone to the dark side, in my opinion. Even in this season, you can see that Robbie is still a good kid trying to help Kenny and things like that throughout the season. And ultimately at the end, losing obviously that fight and not becoming the champion, which I thought he definitely is going to be the champion this season. It's got to be the champion. And he loses it, but I don't think it's because he's a worse fighter than Hawk. I just think that, obviously seeing Kenny, seeing what it did to him, it made him hesitate. And I just don't think Robbie is driven by trophies. Like, I just think his character is one that's not going to be defined by trophies in the show. And in my opinion, and I'd like to know who you think the person is that for you is the best out of them. I actually think Robbie is the best fighter out of all the kids. I actually reckon if I had to put my hands, like, Miguel is obviously up there as well, but Miguel has lost so much time being injured. I think at this stage, Robbie is probably the best fighter, even though he's never won a trophy.
Yeah, I think it would have to be Robbie on the men's side. I think he's definitely the best. I mean, dude taking off his shirt and he's like jacked all to heck. I mean, he was in He's All That and he was doing some Cobra Kai moves and taking off his shirt. And I was like, my gosh, like this is incredible. He's definitely the best. He definitely has what seems to be the mastery of both sides, to where he could have the full range of weapons on his side of any fight. I do love the Hawk arc though. Hawk, I was really rooting for him. He wasn't one of my favorites in the past seasons, but coming into this season and seeing how much he was going through, and then Robbie cutting off that mohawk was just like hard. It was hard to watch. He went through something. He had to dig deep inside himself, and I really do like that he won the trophy and the championship, because I felt like at that point he needed it. Like he really needed it, and I really appreciated seeing them do that. On the women's side, I want to say that Sam is really, really good. She always gets like on the back end of the stuff though. I mean, Tori is a really strong fighter, but she is very aggressive. I think she reacts more than she thinks. And I think Sam is a much better strategical fighter. It's just that she is not going to win. She knows that she needs to be aggressive and find that offensive style to help her get that win. And I think that's why she was leaning so much on Eagle Fang on this fight and towards the end of the season, because I think Tori is a good fighter, but I mean, we saw what happened with Terry paying off the ref and everything. And I think that Tori could win by herself, but I think give like a couple more training sessions and Sam should be the number one fighter. I mean, and especially after practicing and training with Chosen instead of Eagle Fang, like nothing against Johnny, but I don't think really like carrying like a whole bunch of pocket sand and throwing it at the kids and then and jumping
kicking
from
watermelons.
It's not real. It's not real to me. It's not real.
Yeah, and it is funny. I mean, you know, Johnny wanting Daniel to come over to Eagle Fang, and he's like, you know, based on a name you came up with on the flag, you know, the eagle on the American flag in his apartment, and based on a style that has not even existed for more than like 3 months, you want me to just all this tradition for hundreds of years, just throw that away, join Eagle Fang. And that's the way Johnny sort of is. I actually look at Eagle Fang as still Cobra Kai. And at some point, it'd be interesting to see if Johnny gets control of Cobra Kai and changes Cobra Kai into a different type of dojo. Because again, it comes back to something that Miyagi said. There's no bad sort of karate. There's only a bad teacher. And, you know, Cobra Kai is based on a style that I used to come up against quite a lot as well as a kid when I used to be in competitions called Kyokushin. It's a very similar fighting style. They don't care as much about their katas in general. They're very aggressive. Tori definitely embodies that very much. Hawk as well. Eli, his style of fighting, even when he goes to Miyagi-Do, to me is still very much more Cobra Kai in his aggressiveness and how he attacks. And obviously he ultimately falls back into that to compete with someone like Robbie, who I think is just picking up all these different styles a lot better. But why I like Robbie is his fundamentals. Like if you look at the fighters and the actors, like you could tell that Robbie's done some martial arts before the show, because his form and how he does everything, his kicks, his stance, the way he throws his punches, you can see even in real life, he would probably be the better fighter out of all of them. Like he's just got that. So I'm not surprised he had that stint in the movie where he showed off some of his moves, because he clearly has some training. And I think I read somewhere he's done Taekwondo in real life before this. So I can tell he's got some fighting style or some sense. I can pick that up. For the women, you bring up an interesting point with Tori and obviously Sam and Tori winning this fight ultimately at the end. Winning a fight in a way where it's not a fair win, I think is going to do so much damage to Tori next season that I think that even at this point, I'm very 50-50 on who I think. Just looking back at my experience of having been in karate and in competitions, Sam to me comes across as someone that would be better at katas and a lot of the skill stuff. I think she would, like in a real karate situation, I think she would just kill it in that stuff more so than Tori. And Tori to me seems to be more like the fighters that I remember from back in the day, the female fighters I wouldn't even have messed with back in the day. I would just give them all the space in the world. But obviously it's going to be a redemption arc for Sam. I'm sure she's going to win. And I think if she does win the next fight between her and Tori, it's going to come down to Tori's psyche being broken by the fact that she's going to feel like this win is hollow. And what I'm really interested in, Tori had a massive, massive season. Like, I mean, we moved away from some of the other people this season a lot. Like, I mean, we didn't get as much backstory from some of the other characters that we saw a lot of in previous seasons, because obviously the writers felt like we knew them, right? But with Tori, we got even more backstory, how she's struggling to keep things going afloat at home with her mother being really ill, wanting to look after her brother. We get to meet her aunt, and her aunt is talking about potentially, getting the disability money from her mom. And a leech of an aunt. Like, I mean, it just angers me to see the situation that Tori's in. And I really, by the end of this season, I'm going to be honest with you, Tori is like, I've always liked her to a certain degree, and I knew that she's had a chip on her shoulder, but I'm really shouting for Tori now to get out of that situation. And I'm really interested to know what your thoughts are on Tori's journey throughout this season specifically, and where you think we're going to go with her on the show moving forward.
I think Tori went through a lot this season. I mean, I really enjoyed seeing how Tori went on this journey, where she was kind of like defending Cobra Kai. She was the number one fighter. She was the number one pit bull of the Cobra Kai, especially when Robbie comes back and she's like the one that can land the blow on him. And then he was about to leave, but then she's like, stay, kind of thing. And then they were able to like build up this relationship with each other that I don't think is going to go anywhere, because Miguel is going to be spending a lot of time next season, I think, going to go try to meet his father. Johnny is going to go try to find him. And then I feel like Robbie is going to be kind of going back towards Miyagi-Do in a way. And then that's going to be putting him right in the love triangle between Sam, Miguel, and Robbie again. And then Tori is, I mean, I'm heartbroken for Tori, because this is all she has, it seems. I mean, she doesn't have a lot going on for her as she's going from job to job. That's pretty much dead end jobs at this point. And then having to deal with everything that's going on at home and feeling like she has to take on all that burden herself, that Cobra Kai and competing is like the one thing that she has. And for that to be like completely taken away in a way that now she's questioning her own abilities, because I know what's going to happen. She's going to be thinking, could I have won that? I'm sure I would have won that. But then she's like, but did I win it? Like, could I have won it if the ref wasn't paid off? So to me, I think that's going to have her spiraling down in a way that could maybe she leans on Sam. I mean, we did get that line from Sam's mom, which I'm super happy that we got a lot from her this season, and kind of like we got a little bit of backstory of her through Tori's story arc, which I really thought was really good playing and bouncing off and refracting. But to me, I just feel like Tori could go through this spiral and then be sitting there going like, I can't trust Cobra Kai because Terry Silver is going to be over the whole thing. John Kreese is going to be gone. She's not going to want to go to Eagle Fang. She has this rapport now with Sam's mom, and I think that it could lead her back into, maybe we'll see a relationship or a friendship between her and Sam. And kind of like, because we did get that line where she was like, I hope this could just squash any beef that we have with my daughter, and we could move this along here. And I think we could possibly see that. And then maybe it gets broken up by the end where they have to face each other in the All Valley tournament. And I don't know what.
I think it's going to take time. I think it's going to be
great.
I really think it's going to take time. I want to see Tori and Sam make up, but I think that it's kind of like all these rivalries in the show makes the show. You know what I mean? Like next season, and we'll talk about our I guess predictions for where the season's going to go. But I've got a feeling that Robbie and Miguel are going to be on some sort of a redemption arc as well next season, where you can't have everybody make peace. And I think Tori we're going to continue to see at the end of this season, we see Tori kick Sam or punch her, and she falls to the ground, punch her in the gut, and she runs over to her when she should be celebrating about winning and saying, are you okay? And it shows that she is trying to squash the beef, but Sam looks very confused and does not want that from her. And she's like confused. Why are you running at me? Kind of thing. I think personally that Sam is going to hold what happened against her in season 3, she's going to hold close to that for a lot longer, and it's going to be harder for her to let go. And maybe we see that towards the end of next season, but I feel like Tori's going to have to continue to work on trying to mend that bridge. And sadly, it's going to be one way for now. And I think that, like you said, LaRusse, the wife, I think it's Amanda, right? LaRusso, she went over and she made that connection now with Tori, and Tori has warmed up to her. And I think that we're going to continue to see that relationship blossom over the next season. And Tori, for me, the one question mark still is, who is her mother or her father? I've gone away from her mother potentially being Julie Pierce from Karate Kid 4. I don't think that is the case anymore. There's a lot of theories out there as to who it could be. I'll tell you who I think it is now. And I do think it's going to be someone famous. There's a reason that the aunt said, you've got the temper of your dad in this specific one. And I thought that was a little bit, and the reason I picked that up, and you might have missed it because I watched the season twice. I was that hyped for it. I'm like, I'm going to go back and watch it again. And I picked it up. It was, if you flinched, you would have missed it. And I think that her dad could be Mike Barnes. It could be, Terry Silver's previous student who's going to come in. But I think there's going to be a connection, and it would explain why she's such a great natural Cobra Kai athlete, and she's got that aggression, the way that she fights. I would be shocked if they don't make her dad someone significant in the show. And Mike Barnes, he's got to be a lock to come in next season. Like, I mean, when Terry Silver at the end says, I'm going to go get some of my buddies, some Cobra Kai buddies that I've worked with before, to John Kreese, you know who he's talking about, unless there's people that we don't know from Vietnam or some other senseis from other dojos that haven't been introduced in the show yet. But that's not how these writers work. They bring everybody back in. So, I mean, I think Mike Barnes is coming back, and I'll put my TNT take out there. I think he could be Tori's dad.
I think that's a great take because, again, just watching Karate Kid 3, and he was almost just as unhinged as Terry Silver. There's one scene that I couldn't fathom this being real or happening in real life, was when Ralph Macchio was down on the ground. It was like sudden death or going into sudden death. And he's like on the ground after like a few cheap shots, which, my gosh, why didn't you just disqualify him with how many cheap shots you did in that final fight? But there was one point where he was down on the ground, like writhing in pain. And Mike Barnes is like down on the ground, just like, get up, you don't want it. It was like yelling it for 5 minutes straight. I was like, oh my gosh, this dude is going to like have an aneurysm or something, like pass out for how loud he is yelling at Ralph Macchio over and over again. So I think that's a great take. You're right that the writers don't put those things in the show without them leading to something or having a big payoff. So I think it's a great move. I'm surprised we didn't get to see more of the Karate Kid 3, a lot of more stuff from that franchise in season 4, but there's so much in this season that you can't just jam pack it all at once. And I can't wait to see probably that payoff with Snake and Mike Barnes going to be added into the fray. But also, I'm just waiting for Hilary Swank to come in here since she was the next Karate Kid. And Ralph Macchio already came out and said that if Mr. Miyagi was in the film, then it's canon. And so I'm waiting for a Hilary Swank either cameo, because we got Elizabeth Shue the previous season. So I'm waiting for Hilary Swank to come in.
I've got a feeling the writers are going to hold off on that one, and that's going to be season 6, maybe 7. It'll pay off. But I mean, they're getting their every little bit of storyline that they can get out of Karate Kid 3. They're getting out of it, and even to a certain degree, Karate Kid 2 is going to come back with Chosen coming back in next season as well. But they're really leaning back on some of these old movies. Now, we spoke about a few things here this season in regards to probably one of the surprising relationships being between Amanda LaRusso and Tori developing here this season. And I'm going to give you an opportunity to talk and let us know who kind of surprised you as a matchup or people working together, because there was a lot of people that switched dojos, working with different people. For me, probably, obviously the biggest one this whole season has been, can Johnny and Daniel work together? That's probably the biggest one this whole season. And there were very different training styles, them trying to train each other on each other's styles, and we'll definitely talk about that. But before we get into the obvious one of the ones that for me was very surprising was the bond that started forming between Johnny and Sam this season. And I thought that their on-screen chemistry was really natural. The two actors, and the actress and the actor there, they really had that natural chemistry where it works so well, because Sam has been really timid up until this point. She's someone that has always let things come her way, and Johnny has sort of taught her a little bit more about being aggressive, striking first, and she really seemed to take to Johnny's training here this season as well. Was that a shocking relationship for you? And if not, who else did you sort of not see coming working together so well this season?
No, that's 100% the surprise of the season. Like, to be real, I mean, you think like, okay, Ralph Macchio teaching or Daniel LaRusso. I keep on saying Ralph Macchio, like like I should use his character name. But
Same
Daniel
thing.
LaRusso is so nice, and the style of Miyagi-Do is so much more like calmer. It's very soft in the approach that he does. So to me, I always think like, of course, people would be more receptive to his teachings because it's not as aggressive, it's not as brazen. He's not really trying to like push so much on someone so early on, whereas Johnny is so like, we're going to be kicking a ball of like metal spikes and you're going to have to kick it 100 yards. And why do we have to do that? It's like, because I want to. It's cool. It's something I thought would be like, make you like be manly or whatever,
Yeah,
whatever he
grow
would
a
say.
pair, grow a pair. I mean, grow legs.
Yeah, of legs. But yeah, Sam is so much of her parents that I felt like she was going to be the most resistive, and she was very resistant at first when he was like, jump over, there's mattresses on the floor, so if you fall, try to land on those. And it's like, okay, I thought that she would just be like, whatever, we're gonna wait this out and then I'll just do whatever I want to do. But for her to accept Eagle Fang for what it was really interesting, especially with the ways that she's playing off the parents. She is now trying to find her own voice, her own style, and it's that coming of age story where you're really trying to find out who you are. It's like when you stop listening to your parents' music and you start like finding out, oh, there's a band called Linkin Park out there. I'll start listening to that, and you're now into new metal, and then you're getting into harder metal, and then you start finding out hip hop, rap, and then you figure out your own styles of what you like and what you want to listen to in the certain type of moods. And I just thought it
Yeah.
was like really fun and organic to watch, because I felt like Sam was starting to become that person that she wants. Now, I did think that her and her brother were mirroring each other a little bit too much when Anthony was bullying Kenny for so much of the season, and then she was also bullying Tori, to the point where I was like, I don't think I like any LaRusso in this whole show. But at the end, it did pay off. At the end, there was something that was for everybody, and then it leapt into a cliffhanger where I was like, okay, I'm on board for everybody except Terry Silver at this point. Like, I want to see what's going to happen, because he is just like a
Yeah.
cartoon villain at this point, where I'm just like, what's going to happen with him and what's going to happen with everybody else? Who's going to turn evil for a little bit and then turn good? And then who's going to be good and then turn evil towards the end of the season?
Listen, the biggest shock for me of this season was that by the end of the season, I was like, am I starting to like John Kreese? What the hell is going on? Like, am I in the Twilight Zone right now? Because
Yeah.
at the end of the season, John Kreese gets betrayed by his good old mate, Terry Silver. He ends up going to jail for poor old Stingray getting beaten up by Terry Silver. And that was such a good twist, the way that they did it. The way that they put that whole scene together with Miguel getting hurt, then there's the medical stuff, and you're like, oh, is that Miguel? And no, it's actually Stingray. And then the second twist being that he's saying that John Kreese is the one who beat him up, showing the true calculative nature of Silver, bringing up that John Kreese has always been his weakness and he needs to get rid of that weakness. So well written, so well put together, this whole storyline and this whole arc. And you see John Kreese in the actual tournament give Tori the okay to fight her way, to not fight dirty. And he's thinking back about what he did wrong with Johnny. And we find out that Johnny ultimately is John Kreese's weakness, and this is what I love about Cobra Kai. You could not give that character in the movies the same backstory, the same different perspective on who they are, why they are the way that they do things, and especially not in the 80s and 90s. Bad guys were just bad guys. We didn't need to know their story. We didn't need to know why they thought that way. They were one-dimensional characters. But with this show, it's showing us that he actually does care about Johnny. And Johnny has got his own issues with never having known his dad, and we get more backstory to that this season. But I think in some ways, Kreese wanted to be that father figure for him, wanted to be the tough love type of mentor out there. Like, I mean, we all grew up with parents that are from a different generation of ours, right? So we know that the way that they express how they feel and love can be different. Like, I mean, my dad was very hardcore as well, coming from a different generation, was very tough on me. I think we may have said to each other, we love each other like twice in life. Like, I mean, that's it. Like, it's just the type of relationship I have with my dad, And I think that it's a similar type of thing here with John Kreese, and you start liking him and feeling bad for him. So that comment that you made about Silver being the only person at this stage that you really don't like, it is so true. And I would have never thought I would be able to turn around on John Kreese, but damn, these writers are good at how they do it, and it sneaks up on you by the end of the season.
Yeah, just wait till season 6 when we're feeling for Terry Silver. They're gonna make it turn us around, and we're gonna be like, "Do I care for Terry Silver now? What is happening?"
Yeah, I mean, they did it brilliantly in season 1 a couple of times, where you kind of at some points thought, "Is Daniel the bad guy? Am I really disliking Daniel right now?" They just,
oh heck yeah,
they're so good with how they write this show and how they get emotions and feelings out of the audience. And it's the reason that the show is such a big success as well, because, I remember when it first came out and it was on YouTube and I started watching it and I tried to get all my friends to watch it. So many people were not interested in getting YouTube Premium for the free month just so that they could watch this thing.
Yeah.
But the people who did thanked me later. And then the other people got onto it 3 or 4 months or 3 or 4 years later. And they're like, what? This thing exists? There's three seasons out already? I'm like, you guys are so far behind, man. But I'm so happy for the success of the show at this point, because it deserves all of this at the moment, all of the praise it's getting.
Oh yeah, 100%. And one thing I thought they did well this season was toning down as many fights, but not toning down the quality of the fights. They toned down the quantity, but not the quality. I mean, I think
agree, yeah.
to last season, that school fight was really cool, but it was so outrageous. It almost took me out of the whole world because of it. It was so big and it was so crazy. Again, still loved it. But this season, we saw them pick and choose their battles, so to speak. And they were like, yeah, we'll make a situation here where it makes sense, and we won't. When we used to have a fight or try to put a fight here, we wouldn't do it. Like the drive-through was a great example of them being like, we could have an all-out brawl here, but we're not going to do it because it doesn't make sense tonally. And if we wait and just really like string out, it's almost like the suspense of waiting for that fight. And then when we got to those big fights, and we have a ton of fights in the All Valley tournament portion of this season, it just felt so good getting to all those fights at once instead of having these fights every so often in the show that just seemed either they were forced or it just didn't make a whole lot of sense. So it was really nice to see them actually sit down and be like, okay, we're just going to make them do a prank here where they go to the baseball field and they get drenched in the sprinklers. But every fight that they had was really good. And the All Valley tournament was really good. And I think it's because we didn't have like 50 smaller fights leading up to all the fights that we did get, because the action that they were saving up for the All Valley, along with Carrie Underwood's cameo, I mean, it was just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, Carrie Underwood blew my mind when she came on, and I was like, man, they got her to do this. Who's next? Andrew Garfield, the Spider-Man? He might make an appearance. I mean, I've heard he's a massive fan of the Cobra Kai series, so nothing's impossible at the end of the day, and I'd love to see him maybe become one of the senseis for Cobra Kai that gets brought in on the side or something in season 6. Who knows? But, ultimately, you're right. They didn't have as many fights this season, but there were still a few fights with the adults, and there was a really big focus on the adults back this season. Like the story really centered for large portions. They gave everybody their fair shot, but I felt like in season 3 at times Johnny and Daniel kind of took a bit of a backseat where they came a little bit more to the front again in this season for me specifically. Obviously learning each other's styles, and one of the best scenes of the show, in my opinion, was the bar scene, because we do know that Johnny and Daniel likes to go for drinks and have a chat, have a yarn, and they were talking about the fact that they're really struggling to get these two dojos to work together. And I was wondering how they were going to do it, and we obviously find out that they ultimately go and split and do their own thing, but they talk about breaking it to the kids, and then there's this whole conversation, let's fight. And, Johnny goes onto Twitter, tweets out to Miguel, who's his only follower on Twitter, that it's on, dead meat and hash brown dead meat and all those kind of things. Obviously, continuing on with the jokes that Johnny is not tech savvy, doesn't understand anything. And I mean, Johnny as a character is just has to be. The show revolves around him for me, like he's just so funny, not politically correct, not with the times. Like he just doesn't get all of that stuff. I'm surprised that there hasn't been a campaign to, and I'm not advocating for this, to cancel Johnny because of how he is, but I think it's because people know it's not out of malice. He's just ignorant as a character. He doesn't get with the times, but he tweets out that he's going to go out and fight LaRusso, and LaRusso's wife comes in and she says, what's going on? Like, you guys are fighting? All the kids know about this. Sam sent this to me. And he's like, oh, Johnny would have forgotten about it for sure. Like, we were drunk last night. And then we've got this whole montage of Johnny waking up, getting ready to fight because he's serious, he's locked in, and he's ready to go for this fight. One of the most comical and best scenes for me and montages throughout the whole season.
Well, I think what works for Johnny is that, one, his humor and character was established early on in the show, and it's kind of like the It's Always Sunny kind of effect, where they're not making fun of what they're talking about, but they're putting it on themselves. They're the butt of the joke, which I think works in the show and in the context of everything that's going on. That fight, to me, the whole season, I was like, just work together. And we got a good portion of the season where they were working together, at least maybe not super well, but they were still in the same area. They were letting each other do their thing. And then they started like sharing lunches with each other. They were showing each other their different styles. And I was like, this is great. This is what we wanted. And then they had to split it up, which makes sense. At the end of the day, it made sense. But when they split up, I was like, no, don't split up. Like, what is this? This isn't how it's supposed to happen. Like, I wanted them to be a unit heading into maybe a dysfunctional unit, but a unit nonetheless heading into the All Valley, because they really needed all the points that they could get going up against Cobra Kai, who was just beasting it out. I mean, Terry Silver was pumping in a ton of money into that apparel, into like recruiting tactics to get everybody else in there. So to me, I was like, just let them be together. But it makes sense why they had to split up, and then they got back together, and it was a nice moment. It just seemed like that there was that point for me where I was just like, okay, this is getting a little bit tedious. Like, let's just let them work together and then work on microaggressions as we're moving on, instead of like, oh, we have to have this big blow up to then move around and then come back together towards the end. But it still works out nonetheless.
And listen, I get why the writers had to do this. I mean, Johnny and Daniel working together long-term means the end of the show, basically. I mean, the whole thing is, will Johnny and Daniel at some point make peace, at some point get to a place where they do work together long-term? And they had to kind of move away again, but I thought they did it brilliantly. It was a funny scene to see them fight, ultimately knocking each other out in the most bizarre way, and there being no other camera angles for them to verify who won the fight. I thought it was brilliant, and I really enjoyed it. And another good scene between Johnny and Daniel, obviously when they're teaching each other how to do each other's styles, there's this moment that you could have easily missed when they go to the hockey match and Johnny starts a fight with the hockey players, and the hockey players end up fighting with him, and Johnny bails. And he comes back and he says, where were you? And he said, no fight, or something like that. And it was the words that Daniel used to say, that the best defense is not to fight in the first place. And it showed that Johnny actually learned that from the Miyagi-Do style. He left, but he wanted Daniel to learn to be aggressive. That was probably that was a good moment. The only thing for me that was unrealistic about that, if we have to be super critical about it, is that how did Daniel not get sued for getting in a fight? I mean, if
Yeah.
you're a lethal weapon, if you're someone that is trained in martial arts and you're like a sensei, a black belt, like, you can't just go around and fight people. You're basically you're going to put people into stretchers and hospitalize them, like what happened with Stingray, and probably get up being put in jail there. So it was a little bit unrealistic in that sense, but it still somehow worked because of the lesson being taught, which I think was the main point of that. And then obviously later on, Daniel has this moment with Anthony, who is a real, excuse my language, I nearly said something I shouldn't, pain in the ass this season, and he tells him to be quiet, which was brilliant, using Johnny's technique to deal with his son. So I love seeing how they, even though they don't stick together ultimately, there are certain things that rubbed off on each other that is going to remain with them, I think, moving forward, and they'll remember it.
Oh, definitely. I think one thing that was a little bit not fully developed or really tested into was the whole backstory of Danny LaRusso training with Terry Silver back in Karate Kid 3. I mean, we do get a little bit of a moment between Daniel and Robbie where he was like, he'll train you, you'll feel the strongest you've ever felt, and then you'll kind of lose control. But with, like you were saying, Eagle Fang is just another name for Cobra Kai, because it's still Johnny Lawrence, what his backstory is to teaching, and then he's putting his own spin on it and then saying, hey, this is Eagle Fang. But it's Cobra Kai mixed with some other random stuff that he wants to do. So it would have been, I think, a lot more interesting if Daniel was like sitting down with Johnny saying like, look, I trained Cobra Kai. I did the full thing. I went through everything. And this is what I had to go through. And this is how I felt. And this is why I feel uncomfortable training this way, or I can't see the way you go, because if I get pushed to that, I go to a whole nother level where I can't control it. Where I think that could have been dealt with Sam, where Sam is really wanting to train Eagle Fang / Cobra Kai. And now Daniel's nervous because he knows what kind of power it gave him and he couldn't control it, but he's projecting so much on his daughter. I think that could have been a fun conversation to have in between, where then Johnny could come back going like, look, you're different. We're different. You can help show the way of not losing control because you've been there, kind of thing. And they could have had that moment, I think, that could have been much more interesting instead of just being like, no, it's my way, and then you get out, kind of thing. But again, it all works. I really enjoyed the season. And again, Karate Kid 3, crazy, 18% on Rotten Tomatoes. But it was so much fun to watch, and just the source material going into this season and rewatching or rethinking back to it while I was watching Karate Kid 3. I mean, they just nail everything, and it's just really worked on all levels. I mean, just little tweaks here and there I keep on talking about, but I just love it. It was just really, really well done, and everything makes a lot more sense in this world where nothing should make sense.
You brought up an interesting point there about Daniel, and I know that there's a lot of fan theory out there as well, where people say, Daniel naturally is actually a Cobra Kai. Like he's someone, even as a kid in the movies, he used to struggle with his temper, and Miyagi really taught him how to control that and stay calm and not be so impulsive. And it made me wonder, like, if you look at why I think Sam won't lose control, is because I think Sam is similar to how Johnny was. I think they're actually a little bit more similar, where Johnny was, as a kid, he wasn't that impulsive, aggressive. He was really caring. He cared about his dad, keeping his things. He was a bit of an outcast at school, maybe what some people would see as a loser or whatever when he was a young kid, but he seemed to be more sensitive. And Cobra Kai brought him to a place where he could stand up for himself and fight. Yes, he turned into a bit of a bully at one point. There was a girl involved, like there always is in Cobra Kai or Karate Kid world. But I think that it toughened him up to a certain point, where I think that, when you look at Sam, she's also more soft. She wasn't really picking fights. She was getting picked on. She seems to be a lot more in control of her emotions. I don't think that getting Cobra Kai training or Eagle Fang is going to bring, and I mean, the writers could go that way still. But I think that there's a higher likelihood that Anthony would be like his dad, if he was to get into a Cobra Kai situation. But obviously, ultimately this season, and we haven't spoken much about them, they're starting to set up the younger kids here, I think, for what's going to be the next generation of Cobra Kai, because there's going to come a point that some of these actors and actresses that are doing the show right now may want to move on and do other projects. I can see some of these actors getting really famous and actresses and saying, hey, we want to do other projects, we want to move on. Or even just the writers might say, how much more can we do with Sam? How much more can we do with Tori? How much more can we do with Miguel? And don't worry if you're listening to this podcast and you love those characters. I don't think they're going anywhere in the next 2 or 3 seasons. But I think that if they did want to continue on, you've got kids that are 12 years old. They're still going to be in high school. What's high school like in America? Is up until the age of 18 or?
Yeah.
What? Yeah, 18. Okay, so you've got another 6 years potentially of development that you could do with these characters. You've got a very young Kenny who could grow into become, which I think he is going to become even in next season. I don't know if he's going to be it would be a bit unrealistic for Kenny to carry the show and become the main, male champion, even though he got so far this season, because he is still a kid at the end of the day fighting against 18-year-olds. But he could continue to be molded and grow into this really big villain, which we sort of see at the end of the season. He really embraces it. The actor does a great job when he gets back at LaRusso or Lapuso, whatever you want to call him, at the end in the locker room, or the shower, wherever the showers were by the Karate All Valley Championship. We could see these characters developing and becoming mainstays of the show. Like Kenny could become the next guy. Anthony could become a bigger character in the future. Leah, who's the love interest for those 3 kids, she could become a bigger person, and we could have a lot of these others like Bart, the kid with the glasses, who's never really been able to live up or fight with the big boys. He might become a bigger character as the show continues on. I can very much see that they can set this up long term, and we could, depending on the success of the show, I wouldn't be surprised to see this show reach season 9 with a completely new 3 seasons after season 6, focusing on some of these younger kids that are going to grow up, and they're still going to need a mentor. Like the mainstays in the show would continue to be Johnny and Daniel at all times, and they might still do their own thing at some point. But I like the fact that they're opening up this possibility for future storylines and narratives to come from this season.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to go back to real quick about the Sam critique is I think this season in particular, we've seen her get a lot more angry and a lot have that much more temper to her, because she was coming at Tori hard in a lot of those scenes. And when we go back to hearing how the mom got expelled or suspended from school, and she took a baseball bat to the teacher's car while the teacher was in it, I think she's coming from a parental who grew up with that type of anger issues. I almost think that Anthony is more of a calm, cool, collected, he could be the one bullied. That's why he bullies, because he could be bullied harder than anybody else, because he's even bullied by his own friends. He didn't take shots at Kenny when they caught him in the park dressed up as Scuttlebutt, whatever that computer character was. I should have done more research on this, but when they were take a shot at him, do your LaRusso karate thing, and then he didn't do anything because he doesn't want that. He's not that type of person. He'll come at you with the mental stuff or because he has friends behind him, but he really didn't want to be doing that kind of stuff. He kind of did it to try to survive or pick on somebody so he wasn't picked on, which isn't good. But then it leads to him getting his butt kicked in the locker room at the end of the day. So I almost think that Anthony could find his voice next season, or find his way, his footing, his path, so to speak, when he goes to go train, because at the end of the season, it seemed like he was interested in training. Whereas Sam, I think, has gotten so angry now that she has this Eagle Fang training, that she has this brazen attacking offensive style to her now. I think now she's going to have to try to control it, or she kind of finds her way over to Terry Silver, and then she's breaking boards with her fists and trying to punching bags or anything. I don't know. Anything is up in the air.
That would be a twist.
Season. This is going to be interesting. Tori comes over to Miyagi-Do, harnesses her anger issues, and then Sam goes over to really just lean into all the anger issues. I'm excited. Why can't season 5 just come out now? I want to watch it now.
So what do you think the chances are that that they're setting this up for a long-term growth? Do you think that they're going to try and tap into these characters, the new characters, for more immediate gratification going into next season? Obviously, some of them will play a bigger role. Or do you think that this could be setting the show up, like I said, for a few future seasons? They could drag it on because the actors and actresses for this next generation, they're a lot younger. There's a potential that they could drag this out. I have also heard rumors that there is some offshoot seasons or shows in the works that they might be doing from Cobra Kai. So we may see like a young John Kreese and Terry Silver, or there might be some other shows that'll come from this show. Do you think that that's a sign that maybe we're only in for another 2 seasons? Or do you think, and do you have trust that these writers might choose to go on with the show for a bit longer, even if some of the main cast that we have right now maybe moves on and does other projects in the future?
So it's interesting because I feel like the characters that we've been on this journey with, more the kids of Sam, Robbie, and Miguel, I mean, I could see them moving on or doing some other projects out there. We already know Robbie was doing He's All That, which is a Netflix movie that was yeesh. And then we have Miguel, who love Miguel, but he looked like the one that aged the most between seasons. I mean, Sam and Robbie look almost identical. Maybe they got a little bit taller. Maybe they changed a little bit here, but I couldn't notice how much they changed or grew like I did with Miguel. I was like, yo, what is that hairstyle sometimes? But I feel like as they get older and they could be moving on. Like when I heard Miguel was on a bus leaving, I was like, okay, so he's written out of the show for like a half, because half the season he's going to be doing another movie and they didn't know how long they were going to have him for his arc. So I could easily see him being gone for a while. Robbie, I think, could still be a big part of next season, but I don't know about Sam. I think Sam could be more of a background character in the middle part of the season, whereas they're going to really punch up the Kenny and Anthony storylines a little bit more as we move forward into next season. I mean, that could be completely the point of it. And then with Johnny gone as well, looking for Miguel, that's why we brought in Chosen. And then Chosen and Daniel are now the main protagonist to Terry Silver's antagonist, where he's the sole antagonist. So I feel like we could be seeing a lot of the characters that we've grown to know the past few seasons take a major backseat, but not be fully gone. But I can see where maybe they took other scheduling conflicts or something else, and they were trying to really work it in. I feel like they wrote good enough for the characters to really we have enough information to go off of into the next season, going like, okay, I'm invested in Kenny and Anthony's storyline. Where could this go? Yeah,
100%. And it was interesting because in the show, they had a lot of talk about college, university, Sam potentially could go anywhere, her dad kind of wanting to force her to do that. I could very easily see Sam deciding not to do anything that her dad wants her to do and sticking around for a bit longer and trying to find herself. I think there is still some storyline for Sam. Tori's still being in the show, and I think Tori's going to continue to be a main character next season as well. I could still see things happening at that level between those two going into next season. Miguel potentially at some point might want to go off to uni. We found out that he's quite smart and can go into quite a few, but he doesn't have the money. So obviously there's that whole story arc with Daniel never having gone to college, and they sort of do a lot of throwback to what happened in Karate Kid 3 with him spending a lot of money buying the bonsai store for Mr. Miyagi and so forth. But one of the things that I do know for next season is that there is a few pictures that got leaked because obviously the whole show has already been filmed, and we may, I'm hoping, fingers crossed here, that we see Cobra Kai season 6 in August or July or something like that, instead of having to wait until December, since they've already filmed it. Because last time they didn't film in advance like they did this time. So if we're lucky, we might see it in 7 or 8 months from now, because I don't think it takes much longer than that to actually go into post-production and get the show ready and everything like that. So it'll be more of a scheduling thing, and it's Netflix. So, I mean, who cares? Netflix can pump these things out left, right, and center. It's not like they have to find a time slot for it. It's like, oh, no, we can't have it on CBS right now because we've got to have SWAT team for this specific time slot. There's none of that issues with Netflix. So they can do it whenever they want. One of the things that I did want to sort of get into is that the photos that got leaked, made it look, and this might be spoiler territory, so I'm hoping I'm not spoiling this for anyone and they don't want to hear about this, but it is looking like they may have both Johnny, Robbie, and also Mikhail in Mexico next season, like from what I've seen. So I do think Mikhail is going to continue to be a part of the story. So obviously he's off to go and find his dad, who we find out is a very bad man, probably got something to do with the drug cartel. And I'm excited for this because is it William Zuckbar, the actor that plays Johnny? He said that this is his favorite season 5 that they've just filmed. He absolutely loved it. And I mean, can you imagine a Johnny in Mexico going after Robbie, trying to find him? Robbie gets involved with his dad. His dad tries to bring him into the family business. There's drugs involved. Robbie and Johnny as a dad-son duo teaming up and kicking some absolute ass in Mexico, because they're just going to go all out. And we might have some really cool fight scenes from fighting the drug cartel over there as well. It could, like, the possibilities of where that story arc can go is endless, really, if they do go to Mexico.
So hearing that really solidifies that I feel like half the season they're going to be off trying to find Miguel, which then they can have that like family road trip, that father-son bonding, because we did get that scene between Johnny and Miguel when Miguel was coming home from the prom, and then Johnny had this like heartfelt speech while he was drunk, and then he called him Robbie, and your heart is just broken for Miguel. And I think they're going to be dealing with that, which if everybody is off doing that storyline, I think then we're definitely going to get the Tori and Sam redemption arc, because there's no guys. This is the first time that Sam and Tori won't have the guys in the middle of everything, where Sam was with Robbie and Tori is with Miguel. And then all of a sudden Miguel starts going over to Sam, and then there's that love triangle, but Tori's on the outside. And then Robbie's now on with Tori in this season, and Miguel is with Sam, but now everything is up in the air because Sam and Miguel had a fight. Robbie isn't technically seeing Tori, and they're not a full relationship. So now with all the guys out of the way, I think we're definitely going to get some form of Sam Tori friendship. There's no other guys here. They are kind of forced to be with each other and have to talk to each other and be friends in a certain type of way, to where maybe possibly if they have a friendship, it could all sour when the guys come back in and say that her and Miguel like rekindle everything. Not saying that they're broken up, but they did leave on a pretty sour note. And so if, say, they come back in town and then all of a sudden Tori is hanging out with Miguel on the sneaky sneak, and then that's when Sam like sees, then everything goes to all hell in a handbasket again. And I could just see that could possibly be how it goes down. But I mean, to me, that's where I kind of see it going.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so excited for that storyline, and I mean, maybe if people like this podcast enough, let us know by hitting a like on it, leaving some comments down below saying, "Hey, we want you guys to dive into some crazy theories for what you think could happen the next season," because obviously this is more of a recap of what happened this season, but it's kind of still relevant because that's kind of where we see things taking off. I mean, I literally got goosebumps. You probably can't see it. When you mentioned that scene between Mikhail coming home, seeing Johnny on the floor, drunk and passed out, and just even talking about this right now, I mean, this is how good the show is. It gives me the feels that, Mikhail does not have a dad, similar to how Johnny didn't have that in his life. And reaching out to him, saying, "I love you," to who is a father figure to him. And Johnny saying, "I love you too, Robbie," like that hit so hard. Like, I mean, because you do know that Johnny does think of Mikhail as like a son. Like he got really upset about the fact that Mikhail was taken away from him for most of the season to learn Miyagi-Do and get closer to his rival in Daniel. And like, I really, really felt it for the actors. The level of acting, by the way, from the cast, and especially the younger cast this season, has improved so much compared to even season 1, which I was already all in, but you continue to see they're getting better and better at their craft. And then the other part for me that was very emotional as well was seeing, obviously Robbie finally going to Johnny and putting everything behind him, talking to his dad saying, "Hey, I really messed up. There's
Hmm.
this kid, Kenny, and I thought I could help him. I wanted to train him and be a mentor to him, but I lost control and I think I might have made a mistake. And, Johnny saying, like he always does, just put it on me. Don't blame yourself. Put all your hate on me. And that's the kind of guy Johnny is. Like he takes the whole world on his shoulders. He's okay with being the bad guy, being the one that Robbie hates, but Robbie saying, "I just don't want to hate you anymore. I need to let go of this anger." And it was such a great emotional scene between them as well to finally see these two guys, dad and son, come together. And I'm really invested to see where the storyline goes to in the future because I feel like Miguel and Robbie. I think Miguel is going to especially struggle with Robbie being back in Johnny's life. I think Robbie is going to try and put everything behind him for his dad, and he's going to be like, "Let's go save Miguel. He's close to you. You care about him. I'm okay with that. Let's do this." But I think Miguel is going to be the one that's going to have a bit of a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah, I think the full line is "I'm tired of blaming you," which is such
Mm,
a good freaking line. I mean, if you could write 20
mm.
pages of dialogue and then have that line just be the stamp and the exclamation point to really hit that moment, and it's just like, wow, that is huge. I mean, such character building, such a huge moment for Robbie and Johnny to feel at the same time and for different perspectives of what's going on is just incredible. I just really enjoyed that line and that delivery because it just really works. It really, really works.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, the other thing that is going to be interesting, and I agree with you, they're probably going to be away for half of the season. Miguel tries to go over to talk to, I guess, Sam before he leaves and have a conversation with her. He never promises her when she asks, "Can you promise me you'll be cheering me on?" He doesn't promise her that he's going to do that. He just says, "I'm always cheering for you," as he leaves. But they do leave in a very, like you said, 50-50 place because there's the scenes in the show where I just couldn't understand. Like, I feel like ultimately what's going to happen, and I could be wrong here, is I think Sam and Robbie will end up together. I do think that having Daniel's daughter and Johnny's son get together and be the love interest while the dads have this complex relationship is just too good of a storyline not to follow and sort of follow through. And obviously, Johnny, even though he doesn't like um, Daniel that much, he does get that relationship going with Sam, which Daniel already has a relationship with Robbie from having taught him Miyagi Do in the beginning of Cobra Kai. So it's just too good of a storyline to miss. And what was really evident to me was when they were in that prom scene dancing, where both Mikhail and Sam couldn't stop focusing on Robbie and Tori. It to me showed that they both naturally are attracted to the other two and they're together. Where Robbie and Tori kind of ignored them and didn't give them as much attention and were just focused on each other. I do ultimately think that, even though in the beginning Miguel and Sam together was quite nice, I feel like naturally that's not where the show is going to take us.
Yeah, they even have that line at I think the after party at Stingray's where she said that you couldn't take your eyes off of Tori, and then he was like, "Oh, you're the one to talk," or something to that effect. And yeah, it's just I think plays into it's almost like a Romeo and Juliet. It's a
Quite,
love that can't
yeah.
stop. It's like they're on magnets and they're just going to be attracted to each other no matter what the situation is. It's just not the right timing or the right place that they were in at that moment. Like Robbie was a completely different headspace. Sam had to do her own thing. Maybe they had to be with the other persons for a while to understand what they really wanted, what they really didn't want. And then I do think that maybe in season 5 or season 6, that's when everything. I mean, season 5, I think they'll lay the groundwork because I think once Miguel and Robbie come back, I think there will be that point where they're going to be like, I don't know if I want this between Sam and Miguel, and then that's when it'll be like, okay, now we'll just maybe probably take this to like friendship, kind of like how we did back in season 1 where Robbie was training in Miyagi Do, and then that's how they kind of flared up their romance. So I almost feel like that could be where they go towards the end of season 6 or something if they wanted to do that. But I think there's a lot up in the air, I think, with the personality and character of Sam, that I don't necessarily feel like she knows what she wants. I just
Yeah.
that dinner scene. I keep on going back to the dinner scene where at one point she just didn't know what she wanted to do in college or where she wanted to go, and you can tell like the mom and the dad have a plan for her, but she doesn't know if that's her plan. And we kind of see where she's finally taking charge of her own style by the end of the season. I think she's starting to gain her voice. And I think we're going to see her really leap into that and lean on that in season 5, where that's where she'll make her own choices for herself, not because of who she's dating, not because of who her parents are, but she's going to do her own thing.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And there was also that line when they were fighting there at the pool scene at Stingray's house where she says to Robbie, you thought I broke your heart, you broke my heart as well, kind of thing. So clearly there's still some feelings there. Great fight scene, by the way. Greatly choreographed. The choreography of it was greatly put together, in the sense that they all fight. Robbie's the last one standing and then gets pulled in by Tori so that he gets wet as well. I just like that whole scene. And then Stingray coming out, like it's just the mood, like it can go from so serious, so real, to just a comical moment with Stingray running out saying, pool party, hell yeah, greatest night of my life, and then runs in and jumps into the pool as well. And Stingray, of all the characters that came back this season, like, I mean, we got Aisha back for like a very quick cameo. I don't think she's coming back full-time on the show, but maybe that is the producers opening the door for her potentially to be a part of the show in the future again, because I don't know enough to really talk about this, but I know there were off-scene, off-camera stuff that basically meant she wasn't a part of the show after the seasons that she did, and the producers weren't willing to work with her last season. So clearly this is an olive branch being put out there with her being on the show, even if it was just for a very small cameo talking to Sam this episode. But I wanted to talk about Stingray. Like, I mean, he was the character for me that it just felt right, the way they brought him back in, how he fits into this whole Cobra Kai universe. The guy is, I don't know, maybe like 40 years old or in his late 30s, doesn't have much of a life, doesn't have much going for him. He hangs out with kids, and all of the absurdity of that being sort of portrayed through his neighbor when he's having the conversation with his neighbor about him being a loser. And then the one place where he thought he had a home this season ends up not being a home for him, and he gets kicked out from Cobra Kai, something he was very proud of. We obviously see again that there was consequences for him being a part of a fight with kids in school, which should be the case. But I thought they really used that character really well, and the way that they brought him back into the show as well. And he was probably, of all the returning characters that we saw in the show, is probably the one that I was the most excited to see, and he just brings such great comedy to the show for me personally. What did you think of Stingray? And is there anybody else, I guess, that came back that you were excited to see here this season? Any cameos from returning cast members of the show?
Stingray was a definite surprise. I mean, I didn't think we were going to see him back, and then for him to be in the giant house, and the first scene we see him is just getting yelled at by his neighbor for not being like, you're part of a suburb, you're part of you're surrounded by families, why are you doing this? And he's like, it was really, really good. It was really clever, and I just like the way they used him in the season. I want to see if he makes it farther into next season, where he's actually in it from the ground level and goes through the whole thing. I like
he's going to be tortured. Just before you go on to that, he's going to get tortured the whole next season by Silver. Like, even if he makes it in. Yeah. Like, I mean, I see him being like the water boy, the guy running around, like having to clean up after everybody, because we'll talk about what I expect from Cobra Kai next season after this, but I really think he's going to get tortured. Sorry for interrupting your train of thought about Stingray Day.
No, it was really good. So yeah, I don't know if it's like reoccurring, but I really would like to see more. I think I liked about this season the most is that they were putting their foot forward to bringing in more diversity, on both bringing in Kenny and also more women on the season, because there was that scene in the All Valley tournament, like team, the producing team, and they were like, there's a spike in women that are wanting to do this, so we should have a men's team and a women's team. And I just really like the fact that they were really pushing to bring in more women, because it is that type of thing where it's like, so there's only like 2 girls in this whole thing. Like there's no other women in these tournament karate teams. And I
Can I
just
talk
really
to
like
that?
that they yeah, go ahead.
Like I agree with you. Great to see diversity. Great to see them bring that into the show, and I love the fact that the ultimate decision of what happened this season, will Miyagi Do and Eagle Fang be able to continue to practice? Hangs on the threat by 2 females fighting at the end. Like, I mean, the main event was the 2 females fighting for the championship, All Valley champion of the females, instead of it being the guys. They could have easily made it the guys are like the ultimate fight, which they didn't do. But one of the things I do want to point out, when I was looking at that, I was just like, I understand how in this Cobra Kai universe that's a big thing, but just for everybody that don't know the actual karate formats and things like that, like I said, there's a lot that they can't bring into the show. Women karate has been strong for decades. Like, I mean, even like at school level, like you've got female division, male division, you've got age divisions, by the way, which they might even go next season and say we now have a junior All Valley and a senior All Valley to give Kenny a fair shot. Because for me, if Kenny wins this whole thing, like I'm gonna have to call BS on it, because he's gonna be like 13 next year. He's not gonna beat Eli, or he probably shouldn't even be able to beat Dimitri, which is saying a lot. I mean, he's younger. Like, there's going to be a difference. So when it comes to karate, there is female and male divisions. There's weight categories as well. So you won't have people that are like 20 kilograms or however pounds that is, heavier than someone else fighting against them. So I get why they did it in the show, and I'm glad that they made that a big thing. But it's not relevant to actual karate competitions out there. This is just what I wanted to bring up.
Okay, that's fine. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed seeing them bring in the new characters and how they were going to fight and how this world can expand. I think after hearing you talk about that, I think that's exactly what they're wanting to do with Kenny and Anthony. I think next season, it's not going to be on, say, the women or the men. It's going to come down to the junior divisions, and it could be Kenny versus Anthony in the final round, where it's back to Karate Kid 1, where we have the Cobra Kai. Maybe Kenny is now the bully, and Anthony is starting to feel like he is getting a little bit more powerful and a little bit more able to stand his ground. And then they're going to have that fight, and it could go either way. I really do enjoy that they don't make these fights so like kind of like the 80s, where it's like the 80s movies where it's like there's a clear-cut good guy and a clear-cut bad guy, and this person is definitely going to win. Because if that was the case, Robbie would have won. I would feel like he did have that redemption arc where he didn't fully go evil, or he was looking at Kenny going like, did I make a mistake? And if that was the case and he was able to realize that in the moment, maybe he could sit there, win, and then turn to Terry and be like, I did this for justice, or I did this for the right thing, not so you can get more dojos or open up more locations, kind of thing. And he could really throw that back into him or break the trophy right in front of him. Like, I don't care about this stuff. But no, they swapped it over and made Eli the winner, which if you told me Eli was going to win the whole thing before I even watched the season, I would have said, there's no way. There's no way.
Yeah. It's a good twist.
It was such a good moment. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good twist to the show. I really enjoyed seeing that at the end as well, and to see his growth on the show. And I actually think that Eli is going to continue to get better and better. I mean, the question is always going to remain, like, with Miguel being the only undefeated fighter in the actual ring, he didn't fight. He didn't complete that fight. What would have happened if Miguel did fight the whole fight? Would he have won? And it was such a good start to that match before another massive moment in the show happened, and we thought, okay, something's wrong with his back again. The producers really did all the cutbacks to what happened last season with him trying to get back after injuring his back. And I mean, I was fearing the worst when I saw that episode. They really know how to play with your emotions when you're watching this show. I do want to, as we sort of finish off with the season overview that we do here, talk about, I guess it's the last sort of topic, and then if there's anything else you wanted to bring up that you feel like we haven't spoken about, then obviously feel free to do so. I want to talk about Cobra Kai's evolution as a dojo over these seasons. So, we start with season 1. Johnny is involved in it. He's bringing back Cobra Kai, but he wants to show that that the dojo and what it's teaching is good and it can help kids. And season 1, a lot of the kids that Johnny helps are the kids that are getting bullied. So you've got a lot of kids that you could see as weaklings potentially join this dojo, and Miguel gets turned into this ultimate champion. But by the end of that, Johnny realizes that maybe he needs to modify some of the techniques that he's teaching, because he did everything that he was taught as a Cobra Kai student, but he realizes that Mikhail didn't show mercy at the end, and maybe there should be a level of mercy shown in something like a competition. There should be some honor, and it really is something that he struggles with going into season 2 when John Kreese comes back, and John Kreese starts working against Johnny, and he tries to make the dojo a little bit more cutthroat, bring a little bit more people into the dojo slowly but surely, that are more true to what he sees the ultimate Cobra Kai student being, which isn't the nerdy bunch that Johnny sort of had from the start. And as the show continues to evolve, we see Cobra Kai slowly but surely become stronger and stronger as a dojo, because it gets more and more ruthless people there, especially when Johnny walks out. John Kreese gets more control. Now John Kreese is kicked out of this, and Silver is an absolute psychopath, and he's going to train people at a different level. My thinking for next season is that Cobra Kai is going to be more ruthless than what we've seen so far in season 5, and I wouldn't be surprised if, again, a lot of the people that have been a part of Cobra Kai at this point ends up getting kicked to the side. You might only have Tori still there because, like I said, I think there's maybe if she's got a bad relationship with her dad, and if he does end up being Mike Barnes, she leaves because of that. But otherwise, I kind of still see her sticking around at least for half the season or something like that. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see a fully new cast of young, ruthless students, especially now that they're expanding where they're going to be putting their dojos up, come into the Cobra Kai show, which means that a lot of our favorite characters, the people that we have now, are going to have to counter them to some degree for this next season. But I think that slowly but surely, we're not going to recognize this Cobra Kai from the Cobra Kai of season 1, season 2, and so forth.
That's a great point. I was even thinking while you were talking about all of that, that once Johnny is leaving with Robbie to go get Miguel, uh, then that's a whole bunch of students. That's Eagle Fang just kind of like laying out there, not knowing where their sensei is and not knowing
Yeah.
where their next leadership is. And so that's when you have Miyagi-Do, which I think they established the relationship between the Eagle Fangs and the Miyagi-Do students and Daniel LaRusso so well that they will go to Miyagi-Do. They will go towards Daniel and be like, what do we do? And now that they have chosen, I think that's where it's going to be the two of them working together to have a one unified group. To when Johnny comes back, he's going to be resistant. That why are my students learning all of this? Why what's over there? Like they need to come back towards me and my teachings. But I think this is when Chosen, who knows both sides, he knows Miyagi-Do, he knows essentially Cobra Kai / that level of intensity in fighting, that I think he will be the middle ground. He will be able to be the mediator between Daniel and Johnny, that once Johnny comes back, they will be able to be one unified unit as a dojo together, to where that's where his 3 will be locked in. The other 3, which Terry, Snake, and Mike Barnes, if they show up to join forces with Terry, that's their 3. And then John Kreese will probably be in jail the whole season 5, so I'm not even going to worry about him. But I love the idea that there will be bigger, stronger, more ruthless students coming in, learning the ropes. Probably Kenny will be the new face of Cobra Kai. Tori will have this warring self that she wants to be with Terry Silver because of the loyalty, the strength that he has given her. But after seeing the what I will say is that once he paid off the ref, the inside of her will say, he didn't trust me. He didn't trust me that I could win against Sam, that he doesn't think I have the ability to do it. So he had to go to such lengths to where she sees that as betrayal. She could leave. And the same thing with that Parks kid. That Parks kid was really strong. But
Carla, I think, yeah.
if he talks back too much, or there was some points where he was getting his butt kicked. So if he gets his butt kicked too much, then he could be seeing his way out the door. I just think that this leaves open the door to so many different possibilities that could be so exciting leading into season 5 and into season 6, that I think that if everything that I said happens, would be incredible. Like, I would just really like to see it happen.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, can we have season 5 like tomorrow? Like, I mean, that's the problem
Yeah.
with these shows when they drop everything at once like this. You know, it's so easy to watch the whole season. I mean, it's only like what 30 minutes some of these episodes, so it's really
Yeah.
easy to just like go through them really fast. I do think that's a great point, sort of cap this podcast off on. You know, that whole what could potentially happen next season type of thing. But is there anything else that you feel like we didn't discuss that you wanted to discuss in this podcast about this season? And I guess since you're the challenge expert, I know there's a lot of people watching this podcast that may have never seen you talk about the challenge, an MTV reality TV show, which is kind of a little bit of like for those who've never seen it, a Ninja Warrior / meets Survivor, Big Brother. Dare I say, type of spin-off where you can vote people off. They have to go up and do these crazy challenges against each other. And a lot of it demands physical skill sets and things like that to be able to do, and some smarts, I guess, as well. Who would be the person from the Cobra Kai universe that you think, you know, if we obviously not the actor, but the Cobra Kai character that you think would fit in the best in a show such as The Challenge? I guess for me, I'll go first because I kind of sprung this on you. I probably think Tori. There is a Tori in the challenge universe as well, but I think Tori would do kick-ass at it just because she's someone that would go head first, attack all the obstacles, attack all the challenges. She does seem to have some smarts about her as well. So I think, you know, the challenge already has a Tori, but this one might even be superior to that Tori as well if they were ever given the chance to go out there and compete in a show such as The Challenge.
100%. Tori would be the number one. I mean, she has the physicality, she has the strength, and then she has that temper that everybody wants. Like I think this show producers would want that on the season, to go popping off at somebody. And like, if I'm frustrated with you and we had a fight, I want to go down and destroy you. I think that would be incredible to watch, especially if there's like a pole wrestle or something physical where you have to put your hands on somebody. I also think Devin being a new character. I mean, she's very smart. She's could cut you with her words, as Anissa would say, and also destroy you with her physicality. I mean, we just saw it in some of the episodes. So I think those two characters would be the best and go the farthest, because I mean, just the way she was able to analyze the math of how many points that Eagle Fang would need just to stay in the running off the top of her head was pretty incredible. So I think those two characters would do the best.
Yeah, no, 100%. Drew, it's been great to talk to you here on this special podcast here that we've done on Cobra Kai season 4. Again, like I said earlier in the podcast, if this is something that you really enjoy, you want to see more of this, if you want me to try and pull Drew's arm, you know, twist it to try and get him back on to do a deeper analysis of Cobra Kai, or do another fun podcast on it, put a like on this, put a comment down there. Let us know if you like or enjoyed this content. I will definitely be doing more season reviews of TV shows that I enjoy watching, such as Cobra Kai, potentially looking at The Wheel of Time, maybe as another one that I want to do. I really enjoyed that season on Prime. Have you seen The Wheel of Time yet, Drew?
I have not. I'm behind on a lot of TV. I mean, with the challenge finally wrapping up, I've just been trying to catch up in the small bits that I've been getting of free time. So, I mean, I'm locked in on Survivor Australia right now. And then also Singles Inferno, I'm just like obsessed with, and I can't wait for the last 2 episodes to come out. But it's just like, I find something, I grasp onto it. I try to watch it as soon as I can and as fast as I can, because I know I just have another video to get out really soon.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that. And it is difficult. There's so much choices out there for good TV shows at the moment that it is hard to stay up to date with all of it, for sure. Drew, for those that don't know you, or this is the first time they've seen your content, give the listeners and viewers a quick overview of what they can expect on your channel, which, by the way, if you look at my channel, I have Drew's channel as a recommended channel on here, as other awesome channels that you can can go and subscribe to. So he is from the Angel Cake channel, which he runs and produces all on his own. A big job. As a new content creator, I'll definitely be leaning on some of that experience in the next couple of weeks and months as we continue to build this channel as well. Drew, can you give the people a little bit of an overview of what you do on there?
Yeah, definitely. So on Angel Cake Entertainment, I talk mainly about reality TV, i.e., The Challenge. I'm also diving into, during the off season, I'm going to be diving into Amazing Race, Teen Mom, OG, also some other reality TV commentary videos, as well as challenge videos every single week, and just diving into anything and everything that I feel would be fun to do at this time. I mean, we are in the off season of The Challenge, could be a long off season. So anything reality TV based, I will be doing about it. I will be talking about it and doing a little bit more extra content, especially as we're moving forward in time. So yeah, that's what I do mainly over on Angel Cake Entertainment. Anything and everything reality TV based and anything that tickles my fancy. And I try to make it fun, entertainment, and sometimes educational, especially when it comes to The Challenge, because there's like 37 seasons. Multiple people have done like 9, 10, 20 seasons, and I kind of just try to make it fun, educational, and entertaining all at the same time at Angel Cake Entertainment.
Go check it out, guys. It is a great channel to watch, and I'll definitely be following it. Glad to hear you also doing Amazing Race, because that's one of the shows that we'll be recapping here on the Nullified Take as well. So I'll be listening into your thoughts on some of those episodes as well. It's going to be an interesting season for sure, with them having to stop production halfway through it, or 3 episodes in and then continuing it, obviously when the pandemic hit. So that was a little bit of an unplanned circumstance or unplanned situation that happened there on that season, but I'm looking forward to seeing what they come up with for us this season. It's been too long since we've had the Amazing Race on our TV screen, so really hoping that this is a success so we can get more seasons of the Amazing Race coming up in the future. But overall, guys, here on this channel, we will be back to do quite a few. I'm not sure, I probably will drop this. I was 50-50 on when I would drop this podcast, because I want people to know that this is going to be a little bit of both. I'm trying to do something in the sense of having reality TV and also normal scripted TV shows and potentially movie recaps here on this channel. I will be dropping Amazing Race and also The Challenge. Drew will be back with me on The Challenge All-Stars recaps this week as well to talk about that. It's been a great season, so you will see me back for that. If you like this content, if you want to support this channel and you want me to continue to grow this and do more recaps such as this with great friends that I have, such as Drew, please hit the subscribe button, hit a like on it, and we will catch you next time. And remember, Cobra Kai never dies.